I'm Yvonne from Growing Old Disgracefully.
I'm Marie from Midlife Dramas in Pyjamas. You can find us both on Facebook.
And now we've come together to bring you inspirational stories from midlife and beyond in our podcast,
Hear Me Roar! You've done that on purpose, haven't you? Should I always press this play when I'm in the middle of laughing? I sound like a cackling witch. Well, so do you now. Pair of witches.
I know, I'm evil.
All right, we're getting a bit manic now.
I know. Well, should we tell people what we've been doing?
Yes, do.
Yeah.
Do share our angst.
I know, we've got size angst.
Size angst.
Okay, so we thought we'd be clever and we thought we'd get some a podcast t-shirts done for ourselves for just wearing when we're doing the podcast so that people who are watching it rather than just listening can we look great, and
also for appearances
as well,
and photo ops.
Yeah, because everybody wants this.
Everybody's queuing up to take our photo.
Anyway, people who are listening won't be able to see this, but I'm holding up the t-shirt. It's a white t-shirt with our Hear Me Roar podcast logo on it, and it does look really fantastic. I'm really pleased. I love the t-shirt. However,
then you put it on.
Mrs. V gets a 2XL.
Mm-hmm. And I get an L.
Yes.
No, I got an XL. I got an XL.
You got an XL.
I got an XL.
2XL.
You got 2XL.
Right. I'm size 14 to 16 and you are...
I'm size 12 to 14.
So Marie's 12 to 14. So she's in an XL. I'm in a 2XL. T-shirts arrive. And this is the largest size they do is a 2XL. Put it on, and what do we look like, Marie?
We look like two sausages squashed into skins.
Yeah, we do.
It's not pleasant.
No, I know. It was like a full-on Michelin tire going round my middle, wasn't there? It was awful as well.
Very unflattering on both of us.
Too tight, far too tight, and really unflattering. And I would say that mine's is nearer a size 12.
Yes, mine's probably an 8 to 10.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And it is absolutely crazy.
Anyway, we could talk about this all day, couldn't we?
Yeah. Okay, so this week we are speaking with Margaret Carter, who is bossing it in later life. That's the title of the episode. She's 70, but she says she's 23 in her head.
Yeah.
So she's a former head teacher, or deputy head, at a comprehensive school. She taught for 36 years and then she retired. She's now absolutely bossing it in the WI, where she's the chairman of the Tyne and Weir South Federation of WIs. She's been married twice, never had children, she says, but she is nana to 7 boys who've enriched her life.
Oh,
that's so lovely.
That's gorgeous.
Let's go and speak to Margaret and find out how she went from retired to
bossing it in later life.
Yes. Well, welcome to Hear Me Roar, Margaret. You're Margaret Carter, former deputy head and now chairman of the Tyne and Weir South Federation of WIs. That's the Women's Institute for anyone who hasn't heard of WI. And why would someone not have heard of the WI?
I can't imagine, really.
Well, they must be few and far between if you've not heard of the WI.
How are you, Margaret?
Very well, thank you.
Good.
I'm really well, thanks.
Well, it's lovely to have you with us. So one of the things that we're really looking forward to hearing about today is about your career before you retired and before you got involved with the WI. So tell us a bit about where you started off.
When I was a kid, all I ever wanted to do was teach. I really wanted to be a teacher. So when I was 18 and did my A-levels, I went to teacher training college instead of going to university, and qualified as an English and geography teacher. The year I qualified, I was employed by Gateshead Council, and I always considered myself very fortunate because I worked for Gateshead Council until the end of my career, which was 36 years. I loved the job. It gave me so many opportunities as well. I've always been a joiner and always been somebody who got involved. Even if I was in a situation where I wasn't enjoying it, I couldn't not be involved in it. So, mind you, other people would probably interpret that as being bossy and nosy, but there you go. But I've always been somebody who wanted to get involved. Because the thing is, I firmly believe that the world's run by people who bother to show up. And, it's no good sitting back and complaining about things if you don't actually get up off your chair and do something about it.
Well, yes, exactly. So how did you end up in the role that you're now in with the WI? Was it planned? Because I've got a feeling that it was more of a stealth attack, which is
it was really
so often the way.
It wasn't planned. About 12 months before I retired, I knew I was coming up to retirement, and doing nothing in retirement was never an option. I mean, my idea of doing nothing, sitting with me feet up and reading a book. But people would say to me before I retired, "Oh, will you not get bored? You know, after being at work all this time." And I would say to them, "Well, no, because there's so many things I want to get involved with." And as it happened, I joined the WI about 12 months before I retired, and I just had a blast from the minute I joined. I would go to talks and go out for meals, the theatre, and all sorts of things. And it was really, it was a really good way in to being retired. And, so I wouldn't be on any committees or anything once I retired. I'd had enough of that. Having been a deputy head, I was always on committees for this, that, and the other. But I just sort of got involved, and as a result, I ended up on my own WI committee. And then I got involved in the Federation when I expressed an interest in judging competitions and things, and in crafts I got involved. And then through that, I got involved in the actual board of trustees. I was approached if I'd be interested in being the chairman of the Federation. At the time I said, "Oh, I don't think I should do that. I've not been a member for very long." Because in my eyes, that was a job for somebody who, been a member for 25 years or something. And at that stage, I'd only been in about four years. So, I sort of thought about it, and I thought, well, it's something I think I can do. As a result, when I was elected chairman, it gave me an opportunity to change things in lots of ways, but in a good way, I think. And I hope people would say that things changed in a good way, because we'd got to a stage where having lots of women involved, women's lives have changed so much. And of course, women were coming through with different experiences. And one of the issues for instance, we had was that we weren't attracting younger members to the Federation board. But that was because we met on a Tuesday morning. I could go on a Tuesday morning at that stage because I'd retired by then. But if you're working full time, you can't. So all our meetings are now in the evening, which is as inclusive as we can be at the minute. There are some people who obviously can't come in the evenings, but it gave us an opportunity to recruit more widely from the membership.
So you're talking about recruiting and all the rest of it, and I would say that the public perception of the WI, rightly or wrongly, is basically white middle-aged women and older making jam in Jerusalem.
Right. I mean, we're fighting stereotypes all the time, and it is something that you do sometimes talk to younger women and say, "Oh well, I'm not old enough for that," and yet we're open to females from 18 years plus. Once you're of an age where you can vote, you can join the WI, and the demographic is shifting gradually to sort of younger age group. Certainly, where there's been lots of development in urban areas, we're getting lots of younger women coming through. But it is a constant process. And of course, unless you recruit younger people all the time, you're going to end up with no organisation at all, because obviously, people leave us to become more aged and are not able to go out. So the worst happens and they're no longer able to be a member anymore. So we have to, it's one of the sort of main things that drives us now, is the constantly attempting to recruit younger women. And we hope that by showing younger women that, that basically we're women who, yes, there's a serious side to the WI, but we try to make sure that people see us having a good time when we're out together. In a sense, it's like a tribe, really, a tribe of women who, it's a place where you can go where you can be yourself. You're not somebody's mum, you're not somebody's auntie, you're not somebody's wife. You go along, and you're just yourself. And that's a great thing for women, I think, because women have to carry so many roles in society that sometimes you need a space where you just say, well, this is me and this is what I'm enjoying. And I have to say, I have made so many friends from joining the WI. It's been phenomenal for me. Sort of where I live in Washington, but up until I retired, I didn't really know anybody in the area. But since I joined the WI, I can't go to the shops or anything. I'm always meeting people and having a chat to them and things. It's great, I love it. It takes ages to do the shopping, but it's absolutely wonderful that I've met so many lovely people. It's a real asset. And I think often for older women as well, they need somewhere to go where they can make friends. And it, does provide a safe space.
Yeah. And I think in a world now that is so dominated by social media, where people can just sit at home on their phones or on their laptop and become very insular, I think organisations like the WI are now needed so much more.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that, Marie, because people do, as you say, social media can become all encompassing for people and they get absorbed into it. And as a result, they become isolated and cut off. Whereas for us, social media has been a great tool. We do a lot of recruitment by it. We do a lot of publicity for any events we're having. And it's a great tool that's free. But it doesn't make up for sitting next to somebody in a meeting and chatting to them, or having a coffee with somebody, or going out for a meal with them, or talking about books with them. It's a whole area that doesn't cover.
Yeah, it's just that social interaction, isn't it? And actually
having
a chance to sit down and chat and share the same interests.
So when you're trying to recruit younger members or members from different communities, what sort of things are you doing to drive that recruitment?
We try to make people see that we're sort of a much wider organisation than just the Jam and Jerusalem that they might have heard of. We are actually an organisation that was set up for the education of women in 1915, at a time where women didn't really have a voice. And so from the very beginning, the WI was set up under democratic processes. And you'll find that if you go to a WI meeting, they will have a vote on all sorts of things, because that's part of the process. And we do a lot of campaigning work. WI's got a great reputation for the campaigns that they've done. And this is an area that is quite attractive to younger women as well. I mean, currently, one of the things we're working on is dental health matters. And we've been working with the government on the problem that we've got in this country, that people don't have easy access to NHS dentists, and a lot of children are missing out now. But if you go back over time, the WI worked on all sorts of things like Keep Britain Tidy. After the wars, they had resolutions where they really tackled the government about living conditions in country areas. They worked on the Bastardy Bill just after the First World War. They worked on things like educating for women on sexually transmitted diseases who were suffering when their husbands came back from war, and all sorts of things. Very often the WI have been the forefront of topics. Equal pay for women was a great one in the 1940s that they promoted. Lots of things like that. But from the other point of view as well, when we're trying to recruit, we also let people see us having a good, because often people are so stressed with work, and especially young women these days, often they're looking after parents, they've got kids to look after, and having to have a full-time job, most of them, and their time is very precious, and the time that they get for themselves is very precious as well. So it's got to be meaningful. It's not just a case of, oh, well, this month we'll just have a cup of coffee, and then, it needs to be something worthwhile for them to turn out to. So we have across the federation, we have things for the women throughout our federation. For instance, tomorrow night we're having a treasure hunt, and we get people from all over our federation who will participate in that. We might have we have a quiz in August that people from all over our team participate. We have a big party in July, August, so lots of dancing, because I've always maintained women like to have a dance. You don't get the opportunity these days to go out and have a big dance, and so I like people to see us having a good time and not get carried away with the idea that we're all knitting nanas. And that we don't, we're much more than that. The thing about the Jam and Jerusalem, that came about during the war, and we're actually involved in something next week on VE Day, which celebrates what the WI did during the war. And I was looking at some statistics week before last when I was doing a presentation about it. And during the Second World War, WI members made 12 million jars of jam that went out into the shops to be sold. And, that was just one of the things they did. They organised the evacuation programme across the country. When children were brought from the cities into the town to the countryside, they collected plants in sort of countryside that could be used for medical things like digitalis from foxgloves for heart medicine. You might remember the time when we were very young. You're probably younger than me, but we used to get rose hip syrup when we were kids at school. The WI collected rose hips to make syrup for vitamin C for children and things. The amount of work they did during the war, and that was alongside trying to feed their families on rations and making sure that the world ticked along. So it's really standing on the shoulders of giants, and that I'm very proud of that history we've got. Everywhere they could be doing something, they did things. But the good thing about it was that the government came back to them and asked them about their experiences when the welfare state was being set up. They wrote a report called Town Children Through Country Eyes, and contributed to the government what they'd seen.
Are there still the opportunities to be involved in that more serious side of life now? Because I know when I go around the WIs as a speaker and I sit and hear all the business at the beginning, there's an awful lot of fantastic entertainment that's going on and get-togethers and social things, which is absolutely necessary.
Yeah.
But all the things you were talking about, does that still happen? Are the WI involved in things?
Yeah, most definitely. This year, one of our resolution was about clean waters and about clean places to swim, but also about all the pollution that's going into our rivers. And just yesterday, some of our members were out testing the water samples in the River Wear, quite close to where I am. As part of the work with I think it's Durham Nature, their work on rivers. You'll find that each WI you go to, it's surprising really, because they tend not to make a big thing about it. Quite a lot of our WIs collect for food banks, and you'll go along and and they don't make a song or dance about it. They just put the things in the bags as they go in. And one of our big WIs, Fells Angels, last year, at the end of their year, they'd donated something like 260 kilos of food to a local food bank.
Wow.
And then there are others that will knit for charities. They knit for the premature baby units. Every single WI I go to in my role as chairman, when I listen to what they do, they just give a report and they say, oh yes, and we did such and such for the local library, and we did this, and we supported this charity. Most WIs will, even though we're a charity ourselves, most WIs will designate a charity in a year. So, it could be something like Women in Need. It could be a woman's refuge they support. But they just don't make a song and dance about it, And to be honest, I think that's sort of so important that they do that, but it's just something that they do. We see a lot of stuff on the television and on social media about so-and-so donating this to this one and donating things to the other. But our WIs just get on with it and do it. They'll have some fundraising event that'll donate money. And one of the popular ones across the Federation is Daft as a Brush. I think so many of our members have had to use that, or know people who've had to use that charity at some point. Our latest Spring Council meeting, one of the competitions was a knitted baby's cardigan, but all the ones that were entered in the competition are being donated to a charity rather than being given back to people, things like that. So there's a lot of things that the WI do that's not sort of, well, they just don't make a song and dance about it. It's as simple as that,
Except in July. When the
7th July, yes, we have a big song and dance then, yeah.
So when you were talking earlier about having made some changes to try and make the WI more accessible to people who don't, who have got other commitments. When you were making those changements, how did that go down with your fellow committee members? Because they've presumably been there much longer than you. So
well, yes, I mean, it's like anything. If you start changing things, people back off a little bit sometimes. But having said that, I think people are now seeing the benefits of that having been done. I've just been re-elected as chairman for this is my 9th year. Whilst I'm proud and privileged to be doing that, and I'm honoured to be doing it, that is not a good thing in my eyes, because any organisation needs change of personnel. What we're trying to do is develop younger members coming through on the board who can then take the reins and leave older people like me to get out of the way. But it's not necessarily a good thing, that. So we needed to make those changes because we did at the time have a board of trustees that were becoming quite elderly, and they would say that. So by changing the meetings to the evenings, we did lose some people, and some people weren't very happy. And as a result, we also had to make changes to the structure of the meetings as well. It wasn't popular with some people that they were being changed to the evenings. But in order to get younger members onto the committee and onto the board of trustees, we needed to make the meetings accessible. Because we were getting younger members on, time counts. It wasn't a case of just rocking up to a meeting and you had 3.5 hours to have a bit chat, get on with it. The meetings have to count. Papers go out before the meetings for people to read, and we have to stick to a very strict agenda to get through the business in the course of time. There are lots of things that come from national we have to deal with, as well as keeping our WIs on the tracks as well. We have a responsibility to all individual WIs to support them and help them get on with their work.
it's a huge job, absolutely huge job that you've taken on. Have you done anything that you've, in your time with the WI, you've just come away and thought, that's it, that's my crowning glory?
I don't know so much about that. I mean, I am proud of things that we've achieved over the past few years. COVID in particular was a very difficult time because obviously we had lots of people who were fielding, and we had to try and reach our members. And so once it was safe to do so, myself and Joanna, our secretary, we would work in the office, and every week we put out a newsletter by email. And it got that I was pinching bits from magazines and all over, so that it would get to 20 pages, so that people had something to keep them occupied. And a lot of them even now talk about it and say, it really kept us going through COVID. So there was that. But I'm also quite proud of the fact that we've got a lot more open doors, in that we have a lot more events where people from different WIs get together and do things, which is, I think, is really important, because if you join the WI, yes, you're a member of a particular WI and you're entitled to 11 meetings a year, but you're also entitled to join anything that the Federation puts on. So it means you've got access to so many other events, whatever they might be. But more and more of our WIs now are opening their events. If they've got a particular speaker on that's costing them a lot of money, for instance, they'll open it up to other WIs and say, we've got this happening. If anybody wants to come along, let us know. So it's this whole open doors thing that I think is so important. And again, that means we get people's friends joining as well, because they see what an organisation we are and how we're open to other people. I'm pleased at the way we have a much more open federation now, I think, and people are prepared to talk to each other from other federations and do things jointly.
That's good. It makes all the difference, and it makes it more attractive to new members as well.
It certainly does, yeah.
When we had our pre-chat, you said as a younger woman you had absolutely no confidence. So how have you got from there to here? Where's that newfound confidence come from?
Well, I am very old now, so I've had a long time to develop it. But really, I think, like I said earlier on, I've always been a joiner, and I would put myself forward for things. And I've often said to people, younger people, say yes, then worry about how you're going to do it. Because I do believe that the world doesn't come knocking on your door. You've got to go out and seek things, whether it's in your career or whether it's in your home life. Often I meet women who've been widowed and things, but you've got to go out there because friends will go so far supporting you, but you've got to be proactive in your own future.
Mm-hmm.
And also, the more I've done over the years, the more I've discovered it's quite easy to become an expert in things, surprisingly enough. You do a couple of things and then people say, oh, and here we've got an expert on such and such. I do suffer a lot from imposter syndrome. I must admit that's a big part of my life because I've always got the feeling that someday somebody's going to stand up and say, you're talking rubbish, get off. But it hasn't happened so far. And I think I've just made myself do things over the years. I said before, by working with Gateshead Council, I got lots of opportunities as a teacher because I was prepared to put myself forward for it. Confident if I'm on my own ground, I think. Ask me to talk about maths or PE, I'm not so confident. It's just a case of sort of put myself in places that I wasn't convinced I'd be able to do, but I was going to give it a damn good try to do it. I've always had this sort of thing about just do it. And I think it's the Nike symbol. It used to be the tagline they had, just do it. And sometimes you'd spend a long time worrying about something, but if you don't make the effort to do it. And I think that's lots of things. I mean, even now, our spring council meeting when I was stood up in front of 151. A few years ago, I would have been terrified of the thought, and I'm just quite lucky to be doing things that I enjoy doing.
We asked you to come up with a cocktail that represents you, and we are both really interested to hear what it's going to be, cocktail or mocktail. And Marie's got the pen at the ready here. She's writing them down because we're going to make them all.
Oh, lovely.
At the end of the series, we're going to make them all and drink them.
Right. I don't know if I'm supposed to make up a name for it, but my cocktail would comprise a black rum and with diet lemonade, of course, and a squeeze of freshly squeezed orange juice.
And have you got a name for it?
Well, I thought about calling it a Geordie margarita, really, because
that's nice.
I do like a margarita, but I did think that was maybe better if I called it something else. I'd call it a sailor's margarita, with it being rum instead. Whenever we go to a pub and I ask for a dark rum with lemonade, my husband will say to the barman or the bar person, "My dad was a Navy man." As if it gives an indication I was brought up on rum. I wasn't, but I do like the taste darker.
Very nice.
Fair enough. Well, so the sailor's margarita, dark rum, diet lemonade, and a squeeze of orange juice.
Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, thank you so much, Margaret.
It's a pleasure.
We've had a lot of technical difficulties when we've been doing this episode, and you've been so patient. We really appreciate your patience. But most of all, we appreciate the fact that you're out there, you're bossing it in later life, which is the title of this episode. And we really admire you. We really do genuinely admire you. Not many people could hold together a room of 150 people. Not many people just go, yes, bring it on. And we absolutely love you for it. Thank you very much, Margaret.
Yeah, it's been lovely chatting to you. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Nice to see you as well. Thank you.
Thank you to our guest this week, and thanks for listening.
And we look forward to roaring with you again.